Mengle, or as my students say, Profe Mango, and I teach Spanish at Well-Trained Mind Academy. My background is that I grew up in Texas and Maryland, and at first, I passively learned some Spanish from my community. I did not formally start to learn Spanish until I was in 7th grade, and we began with Spanish 1A. After that class, I had the amazing opportunity to stay in Spain for a summer with a family. I eagerly looked forward to that opportunity, but once there, I was caught off guard by how little I could say. The only thing I could confidently say was, "Yo quiero una naranja, por favor," which means, "I want an orange, please." Needless to say, I spent a lot of time eating oranges that summer. And for the first time in my life, I felt mute. I felt wrong being in someone else's country and expecting them to use a different language to connect with me. And that really motivated me to want to become a Spanish teacher and to help other students to connect with others through Spanish. Now, I love to teach Spanish because, for one thing, I know what it feels like to learn a language in a formal classroom setting. I empathize with students about their insecurities and their nerves and celebrate those moments when students break through those barriers and take risks when using the language. Also, I love hearing from students how they come back to the class and share their opportunities that they've had to use Spanish in the real world, whether in a restaurant, at a volunteer opportunity, or in a casual encounter with somebody in their community. Now, what I would like students to know about my classes are that before our class meetings, we can expect to take class notes on grammar concepts and vocabulary from our thematic units using our class textbook and additional videos. Notes are always completed on interactive notebook pages, which essentially make note-taking easier since they're pre-structured and students simply have to follow directions and fill in the missing parts. Students will also complete quizzes during the week that put their notes and their class instruction into practice. When we have a book club meeting, each unit, students will have an opportunity to read chapters before class from our class novels. The books that we read are designed for students who are learning the language, but students are always so impressed by how much they learn by way of vocabulary and grammar in a passive way through reading. Now, during our class meetings, we always start with an opening question to answer in Spanish and a warm-up in Spanish that usually connects with what we learned in a previous class or acts as an introduction to what we'll cover in that class. We will then do a personalized question and answer session, which the questions stay the same for each unit, so lots of practice and repetition. We then do a quick review of some grammar and vocabulary, but the majority of class time is spent doing communicative activities, usually from the textbook, and they relate to the grammar and vocabulary that the students saw before and put them in a real-world context. In these activities, students get a full range of practice with speaking, listening, reading, and writing in Spanish. After class, students take what they've learned in practice in class as well as what they learned through their notes and quiz practice, and they apply it to a final communicative task at the end of the week. This comes in the form of a discussion board post or a flip video, which is like a spoken discussion board. Students need to prepare their responses, but also they need to read and listen to their fellow classmates' presentations and respond to them. At the end of every unit, we have a project or a unit test that helps students to see how much they have achieved each unit and also give them an opportunity to use language in real-world creative situations. It is always such a treat to see what students come up with for their projects, whether they're presenting cooking shows, pitching a trip to a Spanish-speaking country to a friend, or even showing off one of their many talents. As you can tell from this description, our assignments and class structure are laid out in a way that is very predictable, and this allows students to anticipate what they need to do for their assignments and for class. This can be particularly useful in a language classroom. And additionally, all these assignments are designed in a way to meet our ultimate goal of being able to communicate in the language both receptively and expressively. The best way I support students in meeting this goal, besides planning these comprehensive tasks, is I provide feedback on assignments, highlighting when students are able to communicate effectively, and also noting any relevant language errors. However, I always remind students that errors are truly natural in the language learning process and show that the student is taking great risks in making themselves understood. We celebrate these errors in my classroom because they provide opportunities for students to learn and grow in their fluency when they pay attention to feedback. I find this helps students to relax and to enjoy the learning process more because our goal is never truly perfection. Hola! Today we'll be covering clothing vocabulary and describing clothing using color adjectives. This is tricky in Spanish because all nouns have a gender, feminine or masculine, and these nouns can be plural or singular. As a result, our color adjectives have to agree with these nouns. By the end of our lesson, you will be able to not only identify clothing a person is wearing, but also describe colors of that clothing. Vamos, la mini lección con la ropa y los colores. Aquí está el vocabulario, chicos, de hoy. Tenemos los pantalones, los vaqueros, los jeans, los pantalones cortos y las mallas, leggings. La camiseta y la camisa. Now, these two are tricky because they both mean shirt. Now, camiseta is a t-shirt and camisa is a more formal shirt. And the way I remember this is the T in camiseta reminds us it's a t-shirt. Tenemos el jersey, el suéter, o la sudadera for a sweatshirt. El vestido, la falda, la gorra y el gorro. Again, another tricky combo here, la gorra y el gorro. La gorra is a baseball cap, while el gorro is a knit hat for the winter. Also not pictured, la bufanda, chicos. Las botas, los zapatos, la mochila, los guantes, la chaqueta, which is a nice cognate with English, chaqueta. El abrigo is a coat, and if you want to talk about a winter coat, a good word to use is el anorak. El bañador, el traje de baño, y el pijama, which is singular. In English, we say pajamas. In Spanish, it's singular. El pijama. Aquí tenemos los colores. Empezamos con blanco, negro, rojo, amarillo, azul, y gris. So notice how some of these have four forms, right? Blanco, blanca, blancos, blancas. Negro, negra, negros, negras. Rojo, roja, rojos, rojas. That is because they have a singular and a plural form, but they also have a masculine and a feminine form. So when you see four different forms, it has gender and number in agreement. What do I mean by agreement? Well, let's look at the sentence, la camiseta es blanca. La camiseta es blanca. So camiseta is a noun, right? It's a singular feminine noun, and we know that because of la. Now, blanca is going to have that A at the end because la camiseta is singular and feminine, okay? La camiseta es blanca. We have agreement. Look how you see agreement in these other sentences as well. Los pantalones son negros. Los pantalones es plural y masculino. Los, ¿sí? Usamos negros. La camisa es roja. La camisa singular, femenino, tenemos roja, roja. El jersey es amarillo. El jersey, singular, masculino, amarillo. Now, things change when we get to azul y gris. Why? They don't have a masculine, feminine form. They only have a singular and a plural form, so less to remember. So el vestido es azul, it's singular. Okay, so azul. La falda es gris, singular, gris. Some of the ones here have more than one option, and that's because there's some variety in the Spanish-speaking world when it comes to these colors. Marrón, café, rosa, rosado, naranja, naranjo, naranjado, lila, y morado. You have free choice for whichever one you want to use, but it's good to keep in mind which ones have just the singular plural form and which ones have that 4 forms, right? Masculine, feminine, singular, plural, okay? La gorra es marrón, marrón, marrones, café, cafés, 2 forms for each of those. Los zapatos son verdes, plural. Las botas son rosas, plural. Now, rosa is a tricky one because everyone thinks it has an A, so there should be a roso, right? No, there's only the 2 forms here, rosa, rosas. Okay, it kind of looks like it's feminine for everything, right? Even botas, rosas, zapatos, rosas, still, even if it's masculine. Naranja, naranjas kind of has that same thing going on with the A at the end, right? But there's only the 2 forms. La mochila es anaranjada if you're using that option. Los guantes son lilas, plural también. Lila, lilas, same thing. Only 2 forms, even though it ends with an A. ¿Qué lleva la persona? La profe Mengle lleva botas negras, mallas negras, un suéter gris, un anorak azul, una bufanda negra, y un bolso negro. So there's some things I want to point out here. First, notice the agreement that's happening with my adjectives and my nouns, right? Botas, plural and feminine. So I use negras. Also note, when I'm using these adjectives, they're coming after my noun because in Spanish, our adjectives are gonna typically come after our nouns. Botas negras, mallas negras, un suéter gris, un anorak azul, una bufanda negra, un bolso negro. So notice which ones are masculine, which ones are feminine, which are singular, which are plural, and notice that that adjective has to agree. Okay, practicamos, chicos. ¿Qué lleva la profe Mengle? La profe Mengle, chicos, lleva, voluntarios, por favor. ¿Qué lleva la profe Mengle? Excelente, la profe Mengle lleva gafas blancas. Excelente, ¿qué más? ¿Qué más? Una camisa roja, muy bien, una camisa roja. Jeans, excelente. Jeans azul o jeans azules. Plural o singular, chicos. Muy bien, los jeans azules. Plural, chicos, muy bien. Y los zapatos. Lleva zapatos azules y blancos. Muy bien, gracias, voluntarios. Excelente. ¿Qué lleva la profe Mengle aquí, chicos? La profe Mengle lleva... Voluntarios, por favor. Una camiseta gris. Muy bien, una camisa o camiseta gris. Excelente. ¿Qué más, chicos? ¿Qué más? Pantalones cortos. Blancos o blancas. Los pantalones cortos. Blancos. Excelente. Los pantalones cortos, blancos y sandalias. Una Las sandalias, sí, sandalias gris. Gris. Sandalias gris. No, muy bien. Grises, plural, sí, super.